7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing. Mr. Mendez, you gave a fairly clear synopsis as to the way in which Parliament can have access to the documents, and as well did Mr. Drapeau, in fact, showing that there is a way to do this. As importantly, you laid out the responsibility for Parliament to actually engage in this issue. And the issue that we're left with, of course, is then what to do. And you have, I think, led us clearly to the path that the government needs to be held to account as to, the request that was not only, and I want to underline this, not only requested by the Parliament, but this committee. They still have not fulfilled the request of this committee to provide documents. And that was a motion passed by this committee. They have not provided the documents that were asked for by Parliament. And I should also note that in a document that I have in my hand that was sent to the MPCC, there was a request for documents, and that there are concerns of the MPCC around the redaction of the documents, and basically said what you're saying, that this notion that you can't provide documents, or the documents are so heavily redacted that they're not helpful or worth anything, is really, it doesn't wash. And they cite chapter and verse in their document that, this is a problem. They were writing to Alain Prefontaine. And so we're left with, what to do. And I want to just go back to some of the ideas that you put forward. If, in fact, we have a government that's in contempt, and I believe they are because they have not provided documents, would it not make sense to then formally yet again request to the Attorney General, which is Minister Nicholson, to actually carry forward with the requests, to finally give them the option to respond? Because I've read over Mr. Nicholson's comments, and unlike Mr. Day, who says, yeah, go to court, he hasn't been as forthcoming. And would you think it would be a smart thing to do to request yet again from this government what this committee has asked for and what the Parliament has asked for?
Mr. Mendez?
I think that's a very, very interesting question, and the fact that you focus on the Attorney General, one of my sadness in terms of what's happening in this country in the recent years is that the position of the Attorney General occupies two positions. One is the senior justice official for the government, but the other role is the Attorney General of Canada, which is supposed to be the guardian of the rule of law in this country. And that's something which is not often emphasized. And in that role, in many other democracies, the Attorney General even has the power to take on the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and say that you cannot do this because it's in violation of the rule of law and the Constitution. In fact, the Indian Attorney General, Soli Sorabji, has done that on several occasions, who I've met with. And that, sadly, is something which is disappearing from our understanding of that very critical role in Cabinet, the role of the Attorney General. So absolutely, try and go to emphasize to him that he has that role. And given what Bob Walsh has said, what I've said, and what lots of other experts have said, that it's your duty to uphold the Constitution, it's your duty to uphold the rule of law. And if that doesn't achieve any success... They're contemptuous of Parliament. Absolutely.
I want to also touch on something you mentioned before, is the information that the government isn't divulging, which we have asked for numerous times. And I have in my hand here data that was given, information that was given by the UK government, which I'll hand to you and share with Mr. Drapeau. It was actually a question of a member of Parliament as to how many detainees were transferred, what happened to them, how many were released, in fact, how many died in custody. This was something that was actually provided to a member of Parliament, Bill Wigan, after questioning the government, and was released. And I just share this with you because it goes back to 2006 and shows how many detainees were transferred how many were released, how many died in custody, and it goes all the way to 2009. I should also note that the UK has halted transfer of detainees to NDS facilities. We can guess why. And so I'm just providing this to you because our government has said that they can't divulge that information because of national security. Wondering why you think that the UK was able to do that and why our government has said no.
Mr. Mendes?
Okay. Democracy dies behind closed doors. And this is one example of it. Unless you have the ability to actually access critical information in terms of things like this, and nothing could be more precious to a nation than how their military is or is not doing in a foreign campaign. But as Michel Drapeau has said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. What else is claimed under the Canada Evidence Act, which, as Justice Denis Noel has said, is purely to stop embarrassment to the government. And what concerns me, and that's one reason why I think this issue is important in terms of the constitutional issues and in terms of parliamentary privilege, but it's also about democracy, because democracy dies behind closed doors if governments are permitted to hide innocuous information such as this.
So your opinion would be that this is more about national embarrassment than national security?
That's right.
Mr. Dewar, you have under 3 minutes.
I want to go to Mr. Drapeau. You talked about the MPCC. Some of us believe the MPC is actually limited in its capability to look into this issue. You have suggested that as well. Why is it that you believe the MPCC is not able to delve into the issue to the extent that you think it should, you think Parliament should?
Because primarily we have to go back to when the MPCC was created in 1999. It was created in the wake of the Somalia inquiry. It was created to have a civilian oversight as to the performance of its policing functions. A military police, in fact, has a range of functions, some peacetime, some wartime. Peacetime is exclusively policing function. The National Defence Act says that military police members are peace officers. As such, they can arrest and they can ensure custody. They can also detain members of the armed forces or anybody else who's subject to the National Defence Act. In wartime, and when they are deployed in a theatre of war, there is very little crime investigation, very little policing function that takes place. In reality, you would agree with that. You're more interested in the enemy than problems from within. The military police on the battlefield has got three major functions. One is traffic control. As the ships are coming over the shore, Normandy and Sicily would be a good example. You require somebody to say go left and go right and don't go there and so on. That's what the military police do, and a very, very dangerous and very exacting function. The second one is to do route signing, because you cannot rely upon the route signing itself, which could lead you into an ambush. So they actually go out before an army, and they're there and they actually do traffic control right in the battlefield. That's what they do. The third one is to handle the stragglers, detainees, prisoner of wars, and the like, and deserters. So people, as the army moves forward, and we have these civilians or deserters who are coming back, they're controlling them, they're keeping them away from the aerial battles. They are handed over prisoner of war. They don't keep them. They just save them until they can be turned over to somebody else. That's what military police officers do. In a brigade, which is the combat formation par excellence of 6,000 people, there's the platoon of 25 to 30 military police. Small number. So, what happened in Afghanistan? What would have happened in a war scenario? The military police then were doing military functions. They are not responsible to a military prosecutor, or they're not acting as peace officers, they're acting as soldiers with a specific task. They are receiving tasks from their company commanders and the brigade commanders and other individuals stemming all the way from the Chief of the Defence Staff to them. So, and they are implementing a policy that has been developed and been approved and they have been told to implement. So they're just acting as soldiers. As a result of it, and the federal court has said so in a decision by Mr. Justin Harrington, that the military police cannot be called to testify on the function, on the military function. That's not the purpose of it. The Military Police Complaint Commission doesn't have the expertise, the mandate to do that, first. And second, they're calling to account the wrong individual. You may have an occasion military police officer may know something about it, but call his boss instead, and call the colonels, and call the Chief of Defence Staff, and the person from DFET who put this procedure into place.
Thank you.